For generations, society has misunderstood what it meant to be neurodivergent. Individuals whose brains function differently from the majority, such as those with autism, ADHD, or dyslexia, have often been labeled as disordered, broken, or deficient. This deficit-based perspective has been shaped by a rigid medical model focused on pathology and treatment, but this outdated viewpoint is not only incorrect, it's harmful. I'm Jodi, Carlton, a neurodiverse relationship expert, and today I want to talk about why it's so important that we start to shift the way we think about neurodivergence. Now, at the heart of this shift is sociologist Jodi Singer, who in the 1990s likened the diversity of human cognition to biodiversity in nature, framing neurological differences as natural variations rather than medical flaws. Now, this concept doesn't deny the challenges that are faced by neurodivergent individuals, especially in a world that is built for neurotypical individuals, but it shifts the focus from what's wrong to what's different. It also focuses on not just the weaknesses or the challenges of being neurodivergent, but also the strengths. So this creates a more balanced conversation about what neurodivergence actually is. So an analogy that I often use to demonstrate this is when you think about physical traits like height. Most people fall within an average range, but others are significantly taller or shorter. I have a cousin who's 6'7". He is significantly taller than the average range, but we don't label someone who's tall as disordered. We understand that they may need some different accommodations, like more leg room or a step stool, but we don't assume something is wrong with them. My own mother is 4'11", and she keeps stools around the house to reach things. She has a stool in every single room of the house. It's just how she navigates the world because she can't reach the shelves, even the bottom shelf sometimes. But no one has ever suggested that she needs to be fixed. Now imagine applying that same logic to the brain. Neurodivergent individuals experience, interpret, and perceive, think, feel the world very differently than the averages or the typical way that people think and feel. Now, that doesn't make their way of thinking and feeling and interpreting wrong, but it's really different. Now, these differences are pretty much invisible, which is one of the reasons why they've been really misunderstood for decades. Our society hasn't seen their struggles as the results of being in a misaligned environment, an environment that doesn't work well for them. Instead, we've historically viewed the challenges of the neurodivergent individuals as personal failures. One of the most persistent obstacles to embracing neurodiversity is actually the language we use. So terms like autism spectrum disorder or attention deficit disorder still center the conversation on what's perceived as dysfunctional. This reinforces the belief that neurodivergence itself is a problem to be solved rather than a difference to be understood and oftentimes supported. Even today, much of our healthcare, education, and workplace systems remain stuck in this medicalized framework. So children and adults are often required to get a diagnosis, to receive support in school or accommodations at work. And as a result, many neurodivergent individuals live with unnecessary societal demands and even shame. They're constantly trying to mask their true selves in order to fit into societal molds. And the emotional toll of masking, which is the attempt to fit in and to appear more neurotypical, this effect can be immense and it impacts mental health, self-worth, and relationships as well. Research actually backs up what those of us working in this field already know, that neurodivergence is biologically rooted, with twin studies showing that between 64% and 91% of autistic traits are inherited. ADHD has also been linked to specific genetic variants. These findings make it clear that neurodivergent traits are innate differences in the brain wiring. If you've been following me for long at all, you'll know that my passion for neurodiversity is deeply personal. I have a daughter who's autistic. I have a son who's ADHD. I'm ADHD myself, and I have many other family members who are neurodivergent. Now, we've discovered all of that along the way, and it's taken literally over 2 decades for us to understand the neurodiversity that's in my own family. As a professional counselor, I decided to go to a workshop about autism, and I remember that in one of the workshops, one of the breakout workshops, the speaker was talking about traits in children, and it's like he was talking about my own daughter. And I sat there with chills, just recognizing and understanding. So I remember coming out into the lobby and calling her dad and saying, she's autistic. And then later that year, we had her diagnosed formally at the Vanderbilt Autism Research Institute. And that's where my journey began of understanding autism. She's in her 20s now. It's been a long road of understanding her autistic traits, recognizing that other family members are autistic, including her dad, who's never been formally diagnosed, and then eventually realizing that I'm neurodivergent as well with ADHD, and so is my son. But that original moment when I realized that she was autistic was monumental for me and for my family. So my journey of understanding neurodiversity started as a mother and then as a therapist, and now as an educator and a coach for people worldwide. Because whether we've realized it in the past or not, neurodivergence truly impacts everyone. It's lifelong. It's not something that we acquire in childhood, and it's not something we grow out of. It impacts all races, all genders, all societies. Maybe you have a child who has trouble regulating emotions. Maybe your spouse thinks differently than you do, or your coworker communicates in a way that just seems different. These aren't just quirks. They may be signs of different neurotypes. The more we learn to recognize and understand and support these differences without judgment, the more connected, inclusive, and compassionate our communities can become. We're still relatively early in this paradigm shift from understanding neurodivergence as a neurotype versus a disorder. But this paradigm shift moves us more away from deficit-based thinking to understanding neurodiversity as a natural variation in the human race. And we don't need to just recognize neurodiversity, we need to embrace it. Neurodiversity makes us stronger as a human race, as human beings, and even in our relationships. Neurodivergent individuals are some of our greatest innovators, creators, thinkers, mathematicians, scientists, contributors to our technology advancements. I'm not sure where we would be as a human race without neurodiversity. Even our arts, our music, so much neurodivergence there. So we have to start shifting our language around it, our expectations, so that we're valuing the whole person as they are, no matter how they're wired neurologically, whether someone is more neurotypical or more neurodivergent. So let's stop trying to fix neurodiversity, because when we understand neurodivergent individuals, we truly unlock our potential as human beings.